information
Yeah.
to get that worked out.
Only a few decades ago, all drawings in the design process were completed by hand. From initial design concept through presentation drawings and on to technical drawings for construction documentation, hand skills, including freehand sketching and technical drafting, were essential to a designer's toolkit. Professional practice began to embrace digital drafting programs in the 1980s, shunned by some who protested that the computer could never take the place of hand drawings. Today, both hand and digital drawing skills are essential tools for designers to ideate, present ideas to clients, and complete accurate construction documents. This video will compare and contrast the use of hand sketching and digital drawing in the design process.
I typically use hand sketching at the beginning of a project. I like to keep the ideas loose and free. That allows me to create a lot of ideas fast at a rapid pace. I typically use digital sketching to kind of confirm or tighten my hand sketches and kind of validate the ideas that I have.
We start with the you are here and explain the attributes of the experience. And we start telling the story of things that are important to them.
You use digital and hand sketching in tandem always. It's always using one to enhance the other. So I don't find that it's ever one or the other. It's learning how to use all of the tools together to kind of come out with the best outcome.
And then sometimes it's like having a photorealistic rendering, but using the hand sketch to really articulate or lead the client into a certain spot.
Yeah, a lot
on the
of
floor plate.
times we find that when we go right into a Revit rendering, although it may be kind of rudimentary and early in the process, they see it as finalized, and layering that little bit of hand sketch on top of it just kind of gives them the idea that it's still in process and it's not a final solution. I tend to work in hand pretty much for everything, so it's just easier for me. So like if I'm just trying to do lots of iterations of a floor plan to come up with the best solution, sometimes it gets just really super sketchy, and I'm probably the only one who can read it sometimes.
It will be really interesting as both of these worlds kind of come together, in which they are with the iPad, where we're drawing in an electronic format. I think it'll only help enhance, it'll help enhance the process. Won't slow it down, it'll just kind of be the way that it is.
Digital drawing, especially in the beginning, can be a crutch. You know, you definitely fall into your tendencies, you fall into habits and how you would do things the way that you did them before, because it is a calculated move. It's always calculated. I think that sketching really frees you up to not be influenced by your habits and your tendencies. So when you sketch, you kind of get this freedom that you wouldn't get in the computer. I would say that digital and technical drawings really afford the designer reality. You know, once you've moved on from the creative playfulness part of your design and you want to see if it actually works, you know, there are often times when you sit down, you sketch and you say, oh, this would be a great idea, but the reality is it might not really work. So I think that hardlining things using digital tools, seeing visualizations in the computer really allow you to fine-tune and tweak and figure out what will and what won't work.
Hand sketching helps you understand what you're trying to do. When you hand sketch, you don't have to think about what you're doing to get the idea out. It's almost akin to whistling or just humming, as opposed to trying to play the guitar. You have to learn how to play the guitar to get your idea out. You think of a song, you go, ah, da, 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 da. You just do it, just like hand sketching. But if you want to do something in Revit or digital, you have to really understand the process of the medium. And then in my view, learning the process in the medium starts to hamper your ideas and how they come out of your brain. I would definitely say learn how to sketch till you think you're good, because that'll transfer to any digital thing.
We We tend to use hand sketching when it's something that needs to be, there's a concept that needs to be communicated or worked out quickly. It's a lot easier to get something in your head down on paper in a non-perfect form versus digitally when it's, things are a lot more precise. We tend to use digital drawing, whether it's a 2D AutoCAD or a 3D Revit or SketchUp, when we're a little bit further into the design process. Certainly in the AutoCAD form, we're mostly just doing CDs and things in there once things have been finalized. Once we kind of get them to buy off on a raw, a basic, schematic, we move into a digital 3D format to help us visualize and then present those, more fine-tuned concepts to the client.
I mean, really, there's everything in my sketchbooks.
But it's not precious, right? I mean, it's.
I mean, again, like that. I mean, what that's just scratches. But certain things start to really come up as you do it, and you start to feel the architecture of that. But there's no materials called out in that.
Of course not.
If we were to draw that in a digital program, we would have to paint brick or a metal panel or something to it. And now all of a sudden, it got really real fast.
Right.
And so the difference between those two things, sometimes that's a good and a bad thing. Again, they're not in opposition. You've got to figure out when to use the right tool. Hand sketching allows you to understand and get into a building and all the details, and you learn from it. If you take a picture of something, you'll remember the picture of it, but you'll never remember the actual building. So if you go and actually draw a building with your hand to your brain and your eyes, and those visual connections back and forth, you will remember a building better, and that's how you learn how a building can go together. And so I think hand sketching at the start of education, like first year studio or something like that, is grossly important before getting into all the digital. Everyone talks about, oh, my drawing has to be good. I don't believe the drawings, hand sketching, for instance, has to be good or bad or presentation quality. Yeah. It's your sketch in your style. Who's to say what style of sketching is good or bad? And so I think we need to get out of that. Oh, that's a good drawing and that's a bad drawing. Just draw.
So these are all the same thing, but this is where it all came from,
Right.
And there's this nasty sketch right here.
It's a muscle memory thing.
It
like
is.
it's a thing that you can't. Yeah, if you don't practice, then you'll never get any good. I mean, I was a terrible sketch. That's whenever the first sketch that I did, it was awful.
I think in education, that's where you try and you learn your strengths and your weaknesses, and whether you're good at digital hand drawing, both together. But I think that's where you experiment to figure out when to use a certain type. That's when you do it.